Hi there. I know you're wondering why I have such a funny looking hat. It's not my fault. I blame J.R.R Tolkien on that. Do you remember all that stuff about the little Chungus eating too much of his bagel and getting sick? Remember this little wooden guy on this horse? I mean, I do, but I don't know if I have my chronology right on all that because all these movies blend together. That being said, the next two of these are gonna be a doozy. I have to let everyone know that it was probably like a year between filming the Fellowship video and this one, so stuff might make even less sense than it normally would coming from the last video to this one, but just, I don't know, have fun with it. First scene we get is Gary, and he's having a rough time fighting this bulldog from the last movie. And this bulldog yanks him in the pit, and we see all his homies. The main little Chungus, Froyo, running up to Gary after a brief delay. Gary the Fellowship, and not just tells them, he commands them to eat shit. So he's hanging from the ledge and shit. He knows he's about to walk the mystical dark path into the ever ominous light known as the other side. And his final wish is for the team to know they're stupid and he hates them.
You're ugly, you're disgusting, I'm gonna kill you, give me $200.
Gary gets F5, leaving the homies without an IGL. This bothers Froyo enough to have a bad dream and wake up with his boy next to him in a hole. I understand how that sounds, but Froyo's having a bad time mentally processing all this, and then the smell sets in. The smell I'm talking about is from this dude named Gross Colin, and he's hungry for bagels. So hungry, in fact, that he will fight both little Chung guys for the power bagel. Once Gross Colin gets put in his place, Sammy puts a leash around his neck to keep him from losing it. And Froyo starts realizing that this little fucker likes it, and they don't want that, so Froyo takes the leash off, because found out they're all heading the same way anyway. What a funny miscommunication. Don't you love when that happens? What a wild world we live in. Then on the other side of town, we get some Rhodesians pulling up on some orca thighs who are holding our homie Miriam Pepper, who runs into the Fangoria forest for some nice sponsored content. He gets out, he runs away. But then we see Legolas, Grimace, and Aragorn, who's making his second crossover debut in this franchise, get pulled up on by the Rhodesians, where this guy named Ernie lets them know that their homie Miriam got clapped, and they're not allowed in his dad's house anymore because his dad doesn't trust them. But ultimately, Ernie sees that those three are pretty chill guys. Pretty nice guys. Pretty swell guys. And he maybe wants to chill with them in the future, so he hooks them up with some horsies. And you will never believe who Miriam runs into in the forest. That's right, Gary himself, and he's white now, making him more powerful. YouTube, please don't take this video down. This hat does not help my case at all. Meanwhile, Ernie's dad, Thetan, is dying of absolutely nothing, which seems to require no further investigation from the rest of his family. Not into why this may be happening, or maybe the physically slimy man who keeps talking into his ear with an alarming name that I did not change in this video to make clear how poor the decision making is in this kingdom. His name's Grima Wormtongue, the most trusted man in all of fantasy fiction, who with his name and physical appearance was somehow promoted to be in direct contact to the king of this village. Wormtongue is, you guessed it, working for the evil wizard from the last movie, Salamander, and he's been coughing on Thetan, giving him all sorts of gross diseases and such, and he keeps telling him that his son's lame and is steamrolling the vibe, so he's gotta go. He's gotta get out of there. Thetan does exactly that because he's basically walking up the stairway to heaven at this point, so he'll sign any sort of contract or agree to whatever you put in front of him. It's a tactic as old as lawyers. When white-ass Gary gets word that Thetan kicked his own son out of the house, he said, that's not cool at all. He's out of his element. He steps in and slaps the shit out of him to make it make sense. The attack was very effective, and it turns out Thetan was being meat puppeted by Salamander the whole time. Wait, that's so weird. So Thetan goes to Wormtongue and he says, I'm about to kick this kid's ass. He wants to curb stomp Wormtongue until White Gary steps between them and says, enough, this isn't you. So Wormtongue slithers away while Thetan, I don't know, probably takes no time to reconsider who he lets into his friend circle. Just a guess. And a bunch of people just barge on in and tell Thetan an army of porks are ready to date in his area. So he says, we gotta move all the folks out of here over to Horn's Keep, which is impenetrable by the porks because there's too many daggone gosh darn horn sticking out of the walls over there, honey. But Wormtongue goes to Salamander's castle and tells him that exact thing. So Salamander knows too now. Back to Horn's Keep, and you remember how I said it was no place for porks because of all the horns? Yeah, that wasn't entirely accurate. So like a shit ton of porks get into that sucker and they start standing off in the front of that fortress that's in there. All the Rhodesians are hanging out in it, and they got Legolas, they got Grimace, they got Aragorn. Aragorn got hurt before, but he's okay now. And then some dumb fuck in buttered up gloves lets his bow and arrow slip and hits one of the porks in the shoulder. Nice going. Real nice impulse control, Hank. You did a really great job on this one, Hank. Maybe no more fried chicken and biscuits before a battle, Hank. Anyway, because of Hank's big move at the beginning of the battle, the damn castle wall gets blown to shit. Jimbo at the bottom gets his nuts blown off, and then Legolas proves to everyone that his name is purely ironic as he skateboards down like a 20 stair, blammy in hand, icing like 5 dudes on the way down. Holy shit. This came out when I was a child, and the things us kids were talking about in school because of specifically this scene. I mean, you had like 10-year-old kids deciding they didn't need to go to school anymore and they wanted to become pro skateboarders. Kids immediately joining the workforce, moving their ways up to the top of Fortune 500 companies, all from the pure energy that this one scene provided. I mean, if you hadn't seen this movie and you only heard about it from like elementary school kids at this movie's peak popularity, you would have thought that the skateboard staircase slide was like the plot of the entire movie. Whereas watching it as an adult, it's still sick. Back to Mary and Pepper riding a giant tree named Barkface. I'm actually not sure if that's stupider than his actual name in the movie or not. But we're gonna go with it because that's what this channel is. You came for the dumb names. Anyway, they all ride over to a bunch of stumps, and Barkface tells Miriam all those stumps were buddies of his until Salamander came in and made paper out of them. They're all like, are you gonna kick his ass? And then Barkface is like, I'm definitely gonna kick his ass. Back to that fight I was talking about before. Things are going tremendously bad. The Rhodesians figure out they're ostensibly fucked, and a bunch of elves show up to sling some sticks at everyone, like a lot of elves, along with White Gary. Then Barkface and company join the battle, and they're slinging rocks. And I mean that in the physically painful meaning of the term. At all the porks, and just crushing them left and right. I mean, they're crushing. There's this big dam, and all this rock slinging is getting the dam hot and bothered. And it pops open like Niagara Falls and just surrounds the whole area with a bunch of water. And guess what? Porks can't swim, so they all get destroyed. No humans, though. Let's just get that out of the way right now. Nobody died except for porks. And that's it. No questions. No more questions. I don't want to hear it. Back to the Sammy, Froyo, Gross Column trio. They run into these big giant gates into Salad Master's house, and they're thinking, oh wow, here it is. It's exactly where we needed to go this whole time. Let's do this. I want to go inside the front. But then Gross Colin begs both of them to go in the back door. Sammy doesn't think it's a good idea because he thinks it'll be too hard to fit. But Froyo is down, and he thinks with a little bit of determination, they can slip right in. I promise you, I'm not trying to make this weird for any of you. I'm just reiterating what J.R.R Tolkien wrote here. So anyway, after that, Gross Colin gets into a little conversation, and we find out that there's another guy inside of him. God, Jesus Christ. His name is Schmegel, and he wants nothing to do with Froyo's power bagel, but Gross Colin wants to take his power bagel. So Schmegel gives Froyo a nice little bunny to eat the next morning to show that he's a swell guy. While Sammy and Froyo are snacking on a nice rabbit, they see a whole damn-ass elephant get fucking blown up right next to him. And they're like, how did I not realize this was happening right next to me? And then a guy named Farmer Amir chungnaps them, and he sticks them in a bag. Carries them away. So then Farmer Amir starts interrogating the two Chungai. And he lets them know he was boring Amir's brother from the last movie, and he wants to know how he died. Then who else ruins the vibe but Gross Colin, who steps in and freaks everyone the fuck out. Farmer Amir ultimately tells his boys that this dude is weird and initiates a beatdown. But Froyo tells him to trust him, and then he's cool. So then Farmer Amir sees that Froyo has the power bagel, and he's like, what are you doing with that? Froyo tells him he wants it toasted, but Farmer Amir wants it charbroiled. Farmer Amir, who claps a dude riding a dragon asking Froyo for a bite of the power bagel. Froyo almost gives it over, but then Sammy tells him he's acting like a dweeb. Froyo almost goes bodies with Sammy, but then admits he'd lose because he's too wimpy. Sammy gives him a big pep talk, and it tells him that he has in fact not been very chill lately, and Farmer Amir agrees and decides he doesn't want to hang out with him anymore at all. So he lets them go hang out on their own. Then that's pretty much the end. The third movie starts, but, you know, I'll do that later.